good evening and welcome back. It's finally happened. Trump has signed an executive order targeting Twitter after fact-checking row. So as we've known for a long time that any of the social media platforms, including the legacy media as well, will try to stifle dissenting opinions, things that they think are unsavory, things that they disagree with, shadow banning, that kind of thing, whereby you're not aware that your content has been removed, but it has anyway. With YouTube, we've seen videos not showing up in subscription feeds or not being notified, and they introduced the bell as well. It's things like that, or outright censoring so you can't say certain things on different platforms, certain words which are known to be censored, including dozens of Chinese characters that you can't include in YouTube, which is, funnily enough, also banned in China. But of course, the CCP is talking with Google with the Firefly program, so of course they're going to abide by the Chinese whims because they need to. It's just good business. So after a lot of talk, Trump saying the same things, that conservatives are being silenced on these platforms. Now that Twitter has decided to so-called fact-check his tweets, he's decided, no, this is too much. You've decided that you want to have the freedoms of being a platform while also being able to be editorializing like a publisher, that this cannot work anymore. There's too much of a conflict between these 2 points, and you're going to have to pick one or the other. And he's trying to pick platform. That's what he wants. He wants to say, yep, you're a business, but if you're not being open and honest about your terms and conditions, then we're going to hold you accountable to them. You can't choose to be in limbo between the two so that you get better protections and can still exert your control how you wish. We're not going to allow it anymore. Finally. So, as the BBC say, it gives regulators the power to pursue legal actions against firms such as Facebook and Twitter for the way they police content on their platforms. Trump accused social media platforms of having unchecked power while signing the order, which is expected to face legal challenges, of course. But, as they say, critics and several legal experts say the US Congress or the court system must be involved to change the current legal understanding of protections for these platforms. And, seeing as, we've got the election coming up, and the Republicans will be looking to be in a very strong majority in the House and the Senate, it shouldn't be too much of a problem to get the majority that is necessary here, once the thought has permeated through the upper echelons of the government in order to realise what is going on in terms of social media. Twinned with the fact that during the coronavirus lockdown, people aren't being able to converse with each other in person like they used to, and instead are going more to the internet and social media platforms, even more so than they were before, that it is vital that this kind of thing is stopped now. It's too late to be nipped in the bud, but nonetheless, it does need to be stopped, because if they lose control now, then they're never going to gain it back. If you cannot keep open and honest conversation going at this point, then you've lost. And it's only downhill from there until it gets so bad that you have some sort of bloody revolt, and nobody wants it going there. So, whether they like it or not, I think it's time that they realised, yeah, okay, we've kind of got to allow people to speak. And I'm quietly optimistic that the response to the pandemic in the unnecessary quarantine, as we're seeing with various states and countries that haven't locked down, and instead with places like New York where they've sent sick people back to care homes and let the coronavirus run rampant through there, whereas other people who haven't had to share the same supermarkets more because of the lockdown, meaning that other shops can't remain open and forcing people to stay inside, therefore limiting their immune systems. The people who are able to go out and move freely and have the sunlight exposure, of course, and not be limited to where they can go or what they can do, seem to be faring better. So it's not just a thing of lives or livelihoods, which is also lives, but it's just deaths or lives. That really does seem to be what it comes down to. Maybe it's too soon to say at the moment, but that is what the evidence is pointing at. So, as this becomes more clear, provided that we can get the information out about it, then hopefully people will be thinking, maybe there is a bit too much government overreach, and we should actually be able to argue with them, because if these things aren't curtailed, then it really screws over the rest of us for our freedoms and our livelihoods. So, this executive order is in response, of course, to the fact-checking little marks that have been seen underneath his tweets recently to try and say that this is something that needs to be checked, as we see here. Get the facts about mail-in ballots, for example, when he's saying that mail-in ballots will be substantially fraudulent, as we know historically they are, but they're saying that this is unsubstantiated and zero evidence. So where do they point? Well, they point to CNN, The Hill, Washington Post. They point to other opinion pieces where they're editorializing. So they're saying, this person's opinion is wrong. Look at this person's opinion instead. That isn't fact-checking. That's just conflicting opinions, which is what can be done on Twitter anyway, through responses. You don't need to then try to stop somebody and then send them over to somewhere else. We've seen a similar thing happen on YouTube, of course, by trying to link contentious articles to Wikipedia pages and so-called trusted news sites. It's the same thing that Twitter is trying to do here, but worse than that, they're pointing to editorialized pieces. They're pointing just to opinions. Say, we're going to fact check because this person thinks differently. So, as they say, the order sets out to clarify the Communications Decency Act, a US law that offers online platforms such as Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube legal protection in certain situations. Under Section 230, social networks are not generally held responsible for content posted by their users, because they are a platform, but can engage in good Samaritan blocking, such as removing content that is obscene, harassing, or violent. Not just what is beyond the First Amendment. That's the issue. The executive order points out that this legal immunity does not apply if a social network edits content posted by its users, because then it becomes a publisher. The interesting thing that I see coming back from this is the so-called conservative think tank that has warned the executive order could have unintended consequences, as government intervention tends to have, yes. So, according to the Cato Institute, in the long run, this conservative campaign against social media companies could have a devastating effect on the freedom of speech. How does he work that one out? And changing the Communications Decency Act to impose political neutrality on social media companies could see the platforms filled with legal content they'd otherwise like to remove, such as pornography, violent imagery, and racism, or they would screen content to a degree that would kill the free flow of information on social media that we're used to today. So, that's exactly what we want to happen. There is no free flow, it's very much one-sided. So, they're going to say, either you have to put up with knowing that you're going to have people using a platform that you don't agree with on an ideological basis, and you have to let them speak as well, or you don't let anyone speak, in which case there will be other platforms to pick up that slack who are actually happy to have open discourse. You pick one or the other. I really don't see it hampering the speech that they seem to be suggesting that it does. If you're okay with it one way, you should be okay with it both ways. If you're not, somebody else will be. That's what the free market does. The limitations that they're saying are being put on by this executive order isn't. It's the opposite. It's saying stop limiting. That's what it's saying. It's saying we have the First Amendment, the Constitution, for a reason. We don't need to add anything on and give you special privileges. Instead, we're saying the law is on the books and we're going to keep it. So play along or someone else will. It's as straightforward as that. But, of course, we'll have to see how this pans out. But for the time being, it's looking very, very promising that Trump has finally responded. He doesn't appreciate, of course, using CNN, Washington Post, and The Hill and their opinion pieces in order to fight against his opinions under the guise of fact-checking. And we need this, seeing as people are using social media more so than before. So, thank you, Trump, for actually trying to get stuff done. Let's hope this passes through without too many imposing legal restrictions and challenges. And maybe the internet can be something like what it used to be. But hey, until next time, as always, have a good one.